The night sky was filled with an eerie, unnatural silence. It was a peaceful evening on Earth. At least, that's what everyone thought. But far above, in the darkness of space, something unusual was happening. A massive, advanced alien warship emerged from the depths of the galaxy and began its descent toward Earth. No one had seen anything like it before. It was cloaked in a strange, shimmering energy field that distorted the stars around it. This ship didn't look like any spacecraft humanity had encountered in the past. There were no signs of war, no aggressive intentions displayed by the ship. Yet its mere presence sent chills down the spines of the entire planet. Around the world, people were glued to their screens as the news spread like wildfire. Scientists, military experts, and government officials scrambled to analyze the ship's every movement. But despite all the technology and knowledge humanity had gained over centuries, no one could explain the alien vessel. It moved effortlessly through space, as if it was a living thing, a creature from the stars. There was no sound as it glided silently, its energy shield keeping it invisible to the naked eye. A sense of panic began to spread. Humanity had faced alien threats before, intense battles, fierce confrontations, but this felt different. This ship wasn't attacking, yet it was clear that its purpose was far from peaceful. It was as though something was lurking, hidden in the shadows of this colossal craft. Then, just when humanity thought it might be a mere passing event, the ship suddenly released an energy pulse, so powerful it caused a chain reaction of malfunctions across the globe. Satellites flickered, communication signals scrambled, and the Earth trembled under the sheer force of the pulse. The world's defense systems went offline, and for a brief moment, it felt as if Earth itself was helpless against this unknown force. In the midst of this chaos, a secret military base on the outskirts of a remote desert region detected an emergency distress signal. The military sent a team to investigate, not knowing what to expect. As they approached the site, a strange energy pulse shimmered, and through the fog of uncertainty, they discovered something that sent their hearts racing. A small, almost fragile form was lying unconscious, barely alive. It was an alien woman, her skin glowing faintly with an ethereal radiance. The soldiers, already on edge from the ship's strange arrival, hesitated. Who was this being? Was she a survivor of some kind, or was she part of the alien invasion? The woman's features were almost otherworldly. She wasn't like any alien the military had studied before. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, and her long flowing hair seemed to move as though it were alive. Her delicate face was partially hidden by a strange helmet-like apparatus that appeared to be part of her advanced technology. Despite her unusual appearance, it was clear that she was injured. Her body was weak, and her breathing was shallow, as if every breath took great effort. The soldiers worked quickly to get her into the medical transport, unsure of whether they were saving an ally or transporting a potential threat. Within hours, the alien woman was brought into a secure facility, and the world's top scientists and military officials began to work on understanding who she was and why she had arrived. But even as they examined her, the atmosphere remained tense. The ship outside, cloaked in its strange energy field, loomed as a constant reminder of the unknown force that had come to Earth. And then, something happened that no one could have predicted. The alien woman's eyes fluttered open, and she looked directly at the military officer standing nearby. Captain James Hawk, a tall and experienced leader of the Earth Defense Forces, was the first to encounter her gaze. His eyes widened as he saw the intensity in her stare. There was a deep, almost desperate longing in her eyes. She wasn't just a soldier or a scout. She was someone with a message, a purpose. Slowly, she spoke. Her voice was soft, but filled with urgency, as if every word mattered more than the next. The ship, it is not here to aid you. It's here to destroy you. Her words were cryptic, but they struck Captain Hawk like a bolt of lightning. There was fear in her voice, but also something else, something human, something familiar. He leaned in, trying to understand. Who are you? What do you mean by destroy? The alien woman's lips trembled as she continued. I am Nera. I come from a distant world. My people, they'd been watching your planet for years. We've been monitoring you. But this is far more than just an invasion. The ship is just a beginning. It is the herald of a much darker force. Captain Hawk's mind raced. He had been trained for all kinds of scenarios. But this was unlike anything he had ever prepared for. What kind of force? He asked, his voice steady, but his mind racing. Nera shook her head, as though struggling to remember or communicate her thoughts. It's not just the ship, it's what comes with it. My people have lost their emotions, their humanity. We are not the ones who should be here. I need protection. Her words only deepened the mystery. Who was she? What did she mean by her people having lost their emotions? Was she a refugee from a failed society, or was she part of the force that had come to Earth? Captain Hawk didn't know, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just an alien encounter. There was more to this than met the eye. The questions piled up, but before Captain Hawk could ask any more, the power flickered, and a strange hum filled the room. The energy waves from the cloaked ship outside had somehow infiltrated the facility, disrupting communications once again. Hawk felt the ground tremble beneath his boots, and he knew something was happening. Something big. Captain, we have a problem. One of the technicians called from across the room. The monitors blinked erratically, and the alien ship was no longer cloaked. It was visible in full. The military team could now see its true size. Massive, towering over any earthly ship. The craft was hovering above the city now, its energy waves reverberating across the skies. It was clear that the world's defenses were not ready for this kind of threat. As the lights flickered again and a loud hum vibrated through the base, Captain Hawk turned back to Nera. She looked at him with urgency. They are coming. Your world is unprepared. They will attack, and your people will be caught in the crossfire. But I can help. The team didn't know whether to trust her. Could she be the key to saving Earth, or was she another pawn in a larger alien plot? The tension in the room was unbearable, as they all awaited the next move from the alien ship outside. But the worst part was the unknown. No one knew what Nera's arrival truly meant, or what would happen next. The energy waves from the ship were only growing stronger, and a strange feeling of dread settled over Earth. Whatever came next, it would change the course of history forever. Visual storytelling. As the alien ship's energy field continued to disrupt Earth's technology, the scenes were filled with flashing lights, malfunctioning systems, and the ominous hum of alien machinery. The skies crackled with energy, and distant explosions could be seen in the horizon as humanity's defenses struggled to cope. The tension was palpable as the military prepared for the worst, not knowing whether the woman they had rescued would become their savior or the catalyst for their doom. The world held its breath. Days passed, and Nera's condition slowly improved. Despite the fact that she had been rescued from the brink of death, she still carried an air of mystery around her. Her ethereal appearance, glowing skin, and strange, alien technology set her apart from anything humanity had ever seen. But even as the doctors and scientists worked on stabilizing her, it was clear that her greatest challenge lay ahead: her emotions. In the high-security medical facility where Nera was being treated, a sense of tension hung in the air. The room was equipped with advanced human technology, designed to keep the alien visitor in check while they learned more about her. The walls were lined with sensors, cameras, and monitoring devices, ensuring that Nera remained under constant observation. But what caught everyone off guard was how she began to behave. It wasn't just her physical recovery that was unusual. It was her growing fascination with Earth's most profound and inexplicable element: human emotion. Nera was assigned to Captain James Hawk's protection detail. Hawk, a tall and imposing figure, was known for his strength and his calmness in the face of adversity. He had led many operations in the past, always maintaining his focus under pressure. But now he found himself in the presence of something he couldn't fully comprehend: Despite all the training and intelligence humanity had amassed, this alien woman seemed to understand very little about human emotions. At first, Nera asked questions about the simplest aspects of human life: why people laughed, cried, or felt joy and sadness. It wasn't that she was incapable of understanding, but rather, she was deeply intrigued by it. Her people, the species she came from, had never known such emotions. They had long since evolved past the need for them, technologically advanced, but emotionally repressed. To them, love, passion, and even fear were foreign concepts. Captain Hawk found himself trying to explain the unexplainable. He told her that love was a powerful bond between individuals, a force that brought people together, giving them strength and meaning in the face of hardships. He described how emotions could shape decisions, fuel bravery, and create deep, meaningful connections between people. As he spoke, he noticed Nera's eyes light up with curiosity, her glowing skin flickering with what seemed like a faint shimmer of wonder. But her interest went beyond simple curiosity. There was something deeper, something more personal about her fascination. She didn't just want to understand human emotions. She wanted to experience them for herself. She began to ask James about his own feelings. "How does it feel to love someone?" she asked one evening, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "What is the feeling when you know you have to protect them? What makes you fight for someone else?" James paused. His mind raced with the memories of his own life, of battles fought, of loved ones lost, and of the deeper connection he shared with those closest to him. He didn't know how to answer her questions. How could he explain something so fundamental in terms that someone who had never experienced it could understand? But something about Nera's innocence and her genuine desire to know made him feel a strange pull toward her. As the days passed, James and Nera spent more time together. Their interactions were mostly peaceful at first, with Nera learning more about human life and emotions. But soon, a connection began to form between them, a bond that neither of them fully understood. They were from two completely different worlds. He, a human soldier; she, an alien from a distant planet. Yet, despite their differences, there was an undeniable understanding growing between them. Nera began to trust James, and he, in turn, began to admire her. But the calm would not last forever. As Nera's recovery continued, an unexpected danger loomed closer. One night, just as James was leaving Nera's room, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. He knew something was wrong. His instincts kicked in, and he immediately ran toward Nera's quarters. Outside, a group of rogue alien warriors had infiltrated the base. They had somehow bypassed the high-tech security measures, and now they were after Nera. James barely had time to react as the door to Nera's room exploded inward, revealing the intruders, tall, menacing figures with glowing weapons. The warriors were part of a faction that had opposed Nera's species for years, and they had come to abduct her, believing that she held the key to something far more dangerous. Nera gasped as the warriors stormed the room, their weapons crackling with energy. She stood frozen for a moment, but then she turned to James, her eyes wide with fear. "They're here," she whispered. "They've come for me." James's protective instincts surged. He couldn't let them take her. Without hesitation, he grabbed a nearby weapon, a sleek, futuristic rifle that had been designed for the most high-tech defense situations. With one fluid motion, he fired at the approaching warriors, using his training and reflexes to take them by surprise. The air crackled with the sound of gunfire and the hum of alien tech. The warriors tried to use their cloaking devices to blend into the surroundings, but James was ready. He fired again, taking down two of them as they attempted to flank him. The tension was thick in the air as the warriors charged, their movements fast and brutal. As the days turned into weeks, Nera's attachment to James grew stronger. She became fascinated with his capacity to feel, to love, and to suffer. She observed him in moments of quiet contemplation, watching how his face would soften when he spoke about his past, about the people he cared about. She found herself drawn to him, not just because He was the one protecting her, but because he embodied everything that was foreign to her, everything that her people had lost. One evening, as they sat together in a secluded corner of the facility, Nera opened up to James in a way she never had before. Her voice was barely above a whisper, and her eyes were filled with a vulnerability that was completely new to her. "James," she began, "I have been thinking a lot about what you've told me, about love, about human emotion. And I don't understand it, but I want to. I want to feel it too." James looked at her, his heart heavy with understanding. He knew that Nera's people had suppressed their emotions for millennia, that their entire society was built on the foundation of logic and reason. He had seen the way she looked at him, the way she tried to understand the complexities of human emotion, and it struck him just how different they truly were. "You can feel it, Nera," he said softly. "It's in you too. You just need to let it in." Nera's eyes widened as she processed his words. "But my people, they don't feel," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "They are logical, controlled. There is no room for love or passion. Our society has moved beyond such things. We are cold. It is how we are meant to be." James shook his head. "Maybe that's what's wrong. Maybe that's why your species is struggling. You've lost something vital, something that makes life worth living. You've forgotten how to love." Nera was silent for a long time, her eyes fixed on him as if trying to absorb the weight of his words. Then, with a faint smile, she spoke again. "I never knew, I never understood, but now I feel something. Something deep inside. It's not logical, but it's real." For the first time, Nera realized what had drawn her to James in the first place. It wasn't just his bravery, his strength, or his ability to protect her. It was his vulnerability, his humanity. In him, she saw what her species had lost: love, passion, and unpredictability. James was a living embodiment of everything her people no longer had, and that realization both frightened and fascinated her. As Nera continued to open up to James, she began to see more clearly the gap between their worlds. Her species, while technologically superior, lacked the emotional depth that humans possessed. They could build vast cities, create powerful weapons, and travel through the stars, but they could not experience the warmth of a hug, the joy of laughter, or the pain of heartbreak. They were disconnected from one another, living in a world of cold logic and sterile relationships. James listened to her with compassion, but there was something in his heart that stirred at the thought of what her people had lost. He realized that Nera wasn't just fascinated by human emotions. She was desperate to understand them, to feel them, to reconnect with the very essence of life that her species had abandoned. In a moment of clarity, Nera turned to him and spoke with a newfound intensity. "James, there is something I must tell you. The reason why alien girls are drawn to human men, it's not just because of your strength or your technology. It's because you embody everything my people have lost. You have love, passion, unpredictability. You are vulnerable, and yet you are strong. You are what we no longer know how to be. And I believe that humans, with your capacity for love and deep emotional connections, hold the key to saving my species." James was stunned. He had never thought of his emotions, his relationships, as something that could be so powerful, so important to another species. He had always taken them for granted. But in that moment, he understood something profound. Nera wasn't just seeking love for herself. She was seeking it for her entire race, a race that had lost touch with the very thing that made life worth living. The realization hit him like a wave. If humanity could teach Nera's people how to love, how to connect on a deeper level, it could change everything. It could be the key to saving her species, to bringing them back from the brink of emotional extinction. As their eyes met, the silence between them spoke volumes. There was no need for words, no need for explanations. In that moment, both of them understood the depth of their connection. It was more than just protection, more than just a fleeting bond between two individuals. It was the beginning of something greater. And as Nera's glowing skin shimmered in the soft light of the room, James realized that the true power of humanity lay not in its technology or strength, but in its ability to love, to truly, deeply love, no matter the cost. The calm that had settled over James and Nera was shattered in an instant. It was a quiet night at the high-security facility, and for a moment, it felt like everything was finally falling into place. Nera had begun to understand the depth of human emotions, and James had come to terms with the responsibility of protecting her. They had shared more moments of quiet connection than either of them had anticipated, and it seemed like their bond was growing stronger by the day. But behind the scenes, far beyond the borders of Earth, Nera's own species had been watching her every move. The Alien Council, the powerful and cold rulers of her people, had been monitoring Nera's interactions with James. They had seen the emotional connection that was forming between the two of them, and they were not pleased. For them, emotions were a weakness, a flaw that threatened the carefully structured society they had built over millennia. The Council could not allow Nera's growing attachment to a human to continue unchecked. In a dark and shadowy room aboard an advanced alien ship, the Council convened in a heated discussion. Their leader, a tall and imposing figure named Zoran, was furious. "This is unacceptable," he growled, his voice filled with venom. "Nera's behavior is endangering everything we've worked for. We cannot allow such weakness to spread." One of the council members, a sharp-eyed alien named Ilara, spoke up. "We cannot let one individual's emotional choices jeopardize the future of our people. Nera must be neutralized. And if her attachment to the human is strong enough to cause harm to our society, we will make an example of her." Zoran nodded, his expression cold. "Prepare the fleet. We leave at once. Earth will pay for harboring a threat to our way of life." The decision was made. Nera's fate was sealed. As the alien fleet readied itself for departure, the Council gave orders to retrieve Nera and neutralize any threat she posed. But they were unaware of the true nature of her connection with the human soldier, James. What began as a simple mission of retrieval was now a battle for survival, for love, and for the fate of both their worlds. Back on Earth, James and Nera remained blissfully unaware of the approaching storm. The quiet between them was shattered, however, when a sudden series of alarms sounded throughout the facility. Soldiers rushed to their positions, their faces filled with confusion and concern. Something was wrong, something big. The first sign of danger came when the sky above Earth turned a sickly shade of green. The massive alien fleet had arrived, and they weren't here for a peaceful visit. Nera's people had come with a clear purpose: to take her back and eliminate the threat she represented. From the moment the first alien ships breached Earth's atmosphere, chaos erupted. Military bases around the world were attacked with precision strikes, orbital bombardments raining down on Earth's most vulnerable locations. Explosions shook the ground, and the sky lit up with fire as alien technology clashed with Earth's defenses. James and Nera, along with a group of specially trained soldiers, were immediately thrown into the heart of the conflict. They had no time to think, no time to plan. The alien ships were too advanced, and their weapons too powerful. Earth's forces were struggling to hold their ground, but they were outmatched. "Move! Move! We need to get to the control center," James barked, leading the way through the chaos. The sound of explosions and gunfire echoed all around them, but he kept his focus on Nera, who was struggling to keep up with the intense pace. Her glowing skin flickered in the bright flashes of gunfire, and her face was a mixture of fear and determination. She had never seen anything like this before, and though she had the technology of her people, she was still just one person against an entire army. As they ran through the crumbling facility, Nera stumbled, and James immediately reached out to steady her. "Stay close to me," he ordered, his voice sharp with urgency. Nera nodded, her eyes meeting his with a look of both gratitude and fear. They'd reached the control center, where the soldiers quickly began to set up a defensive perimeter. James took a moment to look around, calculating their next move. The enemy was relentless, and Earth's technology, while advanced, was not prepared for this kind of assault. The alien weapons were capable of disabling entire cities with a single strike, and Earth's military was on the brink of collapse. "We need to sabotage their weapons systems," James said, his mind racing. "If we can take down their orbital bombardment, we might stand a chance." Nera nodded. "I can help," she said, her voice steady despite the chaos. "I have access to the same technology. I can hack into their systems." James didn't hesitate. "Do it." As Nera began working on the alien tech, James kept watch, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of movement. The tension in the air was palpable, and every second that passed felt like an eternity. But just as Nera began to make progress, a loud crash echoed through the room. James spun around, his hand instinctively going for his weapon. Out of the shadows emerged a group of alien warriors, their glowing eyes filled with malice. They were elite assassins, sent by the Alien Council to retrieve Nera and eliminate anyone who stood in their way. The soldiers in the room immediately opened fire, but the aliens were too fast, too deadly. A brutal fight ensued, and James found himself locked in close-quarters combat with one of the assassins. The alien was strong, its movements fluid and precise, but James was faster, his experience in combat giving him the edge. With a swift kick, he knocked the alien off balance and went for the kill, but before he could strike the final blow, a scream echoed through the room. James turned just in time to see his best friend, Bonner, lunging at an alien assassin who had aimed a weapon at Nera. In that split second, Bonner threw himself in the path of the shot, taking the full blast meant for Nera. "No," James shouted, rushing to his side as Bonner crumpled to the ground. Blood spilled from his chest, and the life drained from his eyes. "Bonner, no, stay with me," James cried, but it was too late. His friend was gone. The pain hit James like a tidal wave. Bonner had been his closest friend, someone who had stood by him through every battle, every mission. And now he was gone, taken by the very forces they had been fighting to protect Earth from. Nera, shaken to the core by the loss of such a brave soul, knelt beside James, her hands trembling as she reached out to him. "James," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry." James shook his head, his chest tightening with grief. "No, it's not your fault," he muttered, his voice hoarse. "But we can't stop now. We have to finish this." The death of Bonner drove the emotional core of the story home. James was no longer just fighting for Earth. He was fighting for his friend's sacrifice, for the future of humanity, and for the love he had begun to feel for Nera. With a final push, Nera managed to break into the alien systems, shutting down the orbital bombardment and giving Earth's forces a fighting chance. But the war was far from over. The Alien Council would stop at nothing to take Nera back, and James knew that their fight was just beginning. As the first rays of dawn began to break over the battlefield, James and Nera stood side by side, ready to face whatever came next. The betrayal of Nera's people had been a harsh blow, but it had only made their bond stronger. Together, they would fight to the end. And with Bonner's sacrifice weighing heavy on their hearts, they knew there was no turning back. The world had descended into chaos. Earth's sky, once a symbol of beauty and hope, was now streaked with the burning remnants of destroyed cities. The alien fleet, an unstoppable force of unimaginable power, hovered above the planet, casting an ominous shadow over humanity's last moments. Every corner of Earth had been ravaged by the invaders. Military bases obliterated, cities reduced to rubble, and the once mighty forces of Earth shattered. Humanity's resistance seemed futile. James stood at the edge of a broken city, looking up at the alien ships that filled the sky. Their enormous size and sleek, metallic structures gleamed in the sunlight, a stark contrast to the wreckage below. The battle was lost. Earth's military was decimated, and its remaining forces were scattered, their morale hanging by a thread. It seemed as though extinction was inevitable. that the fight for survival had reached its final chapter. But James, ever the soldier, couldn't accept that. He couldn't let the death of Bonner, the death of so many, be in vain. And standing beside him, Nera's steady presence was a reminder of the stakes. This was more than just a fight for Earth. This was a fight for the future of both humanity and Nera's people. They had to win, not just for their world, but for everything that had been lost. Together, they would find a way. Nera, having developed a deeper understanding of human emotions over their time together, now stood taller, more determined. Her own species had once been ruled by logic and cold efficiency, but Nera had seen the power of human passion, the courage that came from love and loss, the strength that came from vulnerability. In this moment, she had made a choice. She would fight alongside James and his soldiers, not as a foreign alien, but as someone who had learned to care, someone who had learned the meaning of hope. The situation was grim, but Earth's scientists had been working tirelessly to develop a countermeasure, something that could level the playing field. They had created a cloaking technology that could render human ships invisible to the alien fleet's advanced sensors. With this technology, Earth's forces could strike without being detected, giving them a fighting chance. James and Nera, along with a small team of soldiers, were tasked with leading this daring counterattack. Their mission was simple: infiltrate the alien mothership and plant a device that would disable their communication systems, causing chaos among the invaders and buying humanity precious time. It was a suicide mission, but there was no other option. They were all that remained, and they had nothing left to lose. As the team boarded the cloaked human ship, a sense of nervous energy filled the air. The crew worked quickly, preparing for the dangerous journey ahead. James took a deep breath, looking at Nera, who stood beside him, her eyes filled with determination. In that moment, their connection was undeniable. They weren't just fighting for their lives. They were fighting for the future of everything they had come to care about. The ship, cloaked and silent, began to ascend, moving towards the alien mothership. Earth's forces, though scattered and outmatched, fought valiantly from the ground. Soldiers on the front lines used the new cloaking technology to their advantage, slipping past alien defenses and planting explosives to weaken the enemy's hold on Earth. But the real battle was in space, where the cloaked ship carrying James and Nera was about to make history. The visuals were breathtaking. From the safety of the cloaked ship, James watched as the alien mothership grew larger and larger, its immense size dwarfing the small human vessel. Meanwhile, in the distance, the remnants of Earth's military engaged the alien fleet in a desperate attempt to distract the invaders long enough for James and his team to reach their target. Orbital strikes from Earth's remaining forces pounded the enemy fleet, turning the night sky into a chaotic scene of explosions and laser beams. But the real story was unfolding aboard the cloaked ship as it silently glided through the heart of the alien armada. With each passing second, the team drew closer to their target. It was a race against time. Every move had to be precise, every decision calculated. One mistake, and they would be detected, ending their mission and sealing Earth's fate. Inside the cloaked ship, Nera was focused, her hands moving quickly over the advanced alien technology she had learned to operate. The weight of her people's future rested on her shoulders. She had seen the emotionless, cold world that her species had created, and now she understood that humanity's ability to feel was their greatest strength. She could feel the pressure of the mission, but she also felt something else, a connection to James, a deep-rooted desire to protect the people she had come to care for. Approaching the mothership, James said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "Get ready. We've got one shot at this." The team held their breath as the cloaked ship made its final approach. As they neared the alien mothership's main docking bay, the doors began to open, and the human ship slowly entered. The air was thick with suspense. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown to the next moment of truth. The ship landed softly inside the mothership, and the team quickly disembarked, moving swiftly and silently. They had one goal: get to the heart of the ship, plant the disabling device, and get out before they were detected. As they navigated the alien vessel's labyrinthine corridors, the tension was palpable. Every corner could hide an enemy, every shadow could conceal a threat. But James, Nira, and the team pushed forward, determined to succeed. The visuals were stark and striking. The alien technology that surrounded them was sleek, metallic, and otherworldly. The walls hummed with the pulse of energy, and the floor seemed to shift beneath their feet. But amidst the cold, alien surroundings, there was a human resolve that could not be extinguished. As they reached the central control room, the enemy finally realized they had been infiltrated. A loud alarm rang through the halls of the mothership, and the team was immediately engaged by alien soldiers. The fight was brutal, but humanity's determination burned bright. James, with his fierce leadership, and Nira, with her newfound emotions, fought side by side, turning the tide of the battle. They were outnumbered, but they were not outmatched. Just as the team planted the device, an alien commander appeared, his eyes filled with fury. "You think you can defeat us?" he sneered. "We are invincible." But James didn't flinch. "We'll see about that," he said, his voice full of conviction. The countdown on the device began, ticking down the final seconds. The team fought desperately to hold off the alien forces as the countdown reached its final moments. With a deafening crash, the device activated, sending a pulse of energy through the mothership, disabling its communication systems and causing chaos among the alien ranks. The tides of battle began to shift. As the alien fleet struggled to regain control, Earth's forces, empowered by the disruption, launched a full-scale counteroffensive. The odds were still stacked against them, but humanity's will to survive was unmatched. Every soldier, every fighter, fought not just for victory, but for their families, their loved ones, and the future of Earth. As the cloaked ship made its escape, James and Nira shared a glance, one filled with a silent understanding. The battle was far from over, but for the first time in days, there was hope. Humanity had taken its stand, and it was a stand that would be remembered. As they moved, the council guards reacted quickly, but they were no match for the combination of human ingenuity and Nira's newfound emotions. The battle that followed was intense. Nira fought with a ferocity that surprised even her, using the power of her emotions to fuel each strike. James, ever the protector, was at her side, defending her from every attack, never once hesitating to place himself in harm's way to keep her safe. It was in this chaos that James made the ultimate sacrifice. As the leader of the council lunged at Nira, his blade drawn, James stepped in front of her, taking the full brunt of the attack. Blood spilled from his side as he collapsed to the ground, but his eyes never left Nira's. "Nira," James gasped, his voice weak but full of emotion. We did this together. You can do it, for both of us." Tears welled up in Nira's eyes as she knelt beside him. She had never felt such a deep sorrow before. The bond they shared, their love, their shared strength, this was the power that had driven them this far. She could feel it now, more than ever before. The depth of her emotions, the depth of their connection, was what had carried them through every trial, every obstacle. And now, with James' life hanging in the balance, she knew what she had to do. With a primal scream, Nira unleashed the full force of her alien power, sending a shockwave through the chamber. The council members staggered back, stunned by the raw energy that she released. The technology they had relied on for centuries began to short-circuit, the once imposing council now reduced to a vulnerable group of beings who had underestimated the true strength of emotion. As the alien council collapsed, their reign of control came to an end. The alien fleet outside began to falter, their coordination disrupted by Nira's final act of defiance. The battle was won, but the victory came at a cost. James, his life fading away, looked up at Nira one last time. You were right," James whispered. "Love, it's the most powerful thing." Tears fell from Nera's eyes as she cradled him in her arms. "I won't let your sacrifice be in vain, James. I promise." With the Council's defeat, the alien fleet began to retreat. The remaining forces of Earth, now reinvigorated by the destruction of the Council, fought back with renewed strength. The battle for Earth had been won, but there was still much to be done. As the dust settled, Nera knew that her people had a long road ahead of them. They had to rebuild, to learn the value of love and emotion again. Nera chose to stay on Earth, by James' side. Her love for him, and his sacrifice, had shown her the truth. The alien species, once so cold and rigid, began to embrace their newfound emotions, slowly rebuilding their society with a deeper understanding of what it meant to feel. As the story came to a close, humanity stood victorious. But the true victory was in the change that had begun. The future was uncertain, but with Nera's help, both humans and aliens would evolve, learning from one another and forging a new path. The emotional twist at the end was clear. It was not just about survival, but about the strength found in love, passion, and the unpredictability of life. The galaxy had been changed forever, and the legacy of their shared journey would live on. In that moment, James realized that this wasn't just about winning a war. It was about the connection between him and Nera, between Earth and the rest of the universe. Together, they had sparked the beginning of something greater than just survival, a future built on the strength of emotion, love, and the relentless spirit of humanity. The battle had reached its peak. Earth, once a vibrant planet, now lay in ruins, its future hanging in the balance. The final stand had begun, and humanity, despite being vastly outnumbered, was fighting with everything they had. As explosions rocked the atmosphere and the alien fleet continued its assault, James and Nera were making their way toward the heart of the alien mothership. This was it, the decisive moment that would determine the fate of not just Earth, but the future of all life in the galaxy. Nera walked beside James, her steps resolute. She had transformed over the course of their journey. The cold, emotionless alien who had arrived on Earth was now a passionate individual, fully aware of the power emotions could wield. Her love for James had ignited a fire within her, and now she was ready to face her people, the alien council, who had once abandoned those very emotions in their relentless pursuit of power. The alien mothership loomed ahead, a symbol of oppression, a vessel that carried the last remnants of a civilization that had chosen to silence its heart in favor of cold logic and ruthless control. It was here, in the heart of their stronghold, that Nera would make her stand. As they entered the council chamber, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The alien council members sat in their high, imposing thrones, their emotionless faces staring down at Nera and James. These were the beings who had governed their people for millennia, their cold and calculated ways having led their species into a future devoid of feeling. They believed in power above all else, in the suppression of emotion as the only way to achieve dominance. Nera, one of the council members, spoke, his voice flat. "You have betrayed your people. You have let your feelings cloud your judgment. This is not the way of our kind. You have become weak." James stood beside Nera, his hand resting on her shoulder. "You call it weakness," he said, his voice steady. "But what you've forgotten is that love, passion, and unpredictability are the true strengths of any species. Those qualities are what make us resilient, what make us fight for one another. Without them, you're just machines." Nera's heart pounded in her chest, but she stood firm, her eyes locked with the council's cold, judgmental gaze. "You are wrong," she said, her voice unwavering. "I have learned what it means to feel, to love, to care. And that is why I am not afraid to stand against you. I will not allow you to destroy everything that makes us who we are." With a deep breath, Nera stepped forward, her voice now filled with emotion as she addressed her people. "For centuries, we have suppressed our emotions. We have tried to build a perfect society, but in doing so, we have lost what truly makes us powerful. It is love, it is passion, It is the unpredictability of human life that gives us strength. We have been blinded by our quest for control, but it is time to see the truth. Her words hung in the air, a challenge to the very foundation of the alien species' existence. For a moment, the council was silent. Then, one by one, the council members stood, their faces etched with anger and disbelief. "You dare defy us?" The leader of the council sneered. "You have no right to speak of such things. We are the chosen ones, the enlightened species. You are nothing but a traitor." But Nera's heart had never been clearer. She turned to James, her eyes filled with a determination that was fueled by their shared bond. "James, it's time," she said softly. Without another word, the two of them launched into action. They had no backup, no reinforcements, just their wits, their courage, and their emotional connection. James pulled out a small device, a piece of technology developed by Earth's engineers, capable of disrupting the alien council's communication systems. Meanwhile, Nera activated her own hidden alien tech, a powerful energy pulse that could incapacitate their enemies.